All right, welcome. This is DB talking now. DB talking birds. DB talking Philadelphia Eagles. I am Dylan Brown. I am your host. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get into it about this team. This team is broken. This team is broken. From the top down. Let's start with the fact that Carson Wentz was again sacked 6 times this past week against the Seattle Seahawks. 6 times against that Seattle Seahawks pass defense. That Seattle Seahawks pass rush. Look, I want to go ahead and get into this, and I spoke a little bit about this leading into the game. The Seahawks pass defense is giving up a historic amount of yards per game average right now against the pass. The Eagles were only to manage somewhere right above 200 yards passing. I spoke about that matchup going into the game, and I didn't want to put 2 cents into it because we hadn't been able to take advantage of matchups like that all season long. And boy, was I right. Boy, was I right. We weren't able to do a darn thing about it. They were sacked. He was sacked. Carson Wentz was sacked 6 times. He didn't have any time whatsoever. Once again, it was another poor performance from Carson Wentz. I must say there were times throughout the game where Carson did look pretty good. They decided to go up tempo to end that first half, and Carson looked like we know Carson can look. He looked like the Carson that we fell in love with. The up tempo stuff, he had pressure right in his face when he threw that dime down the seam to Dallas Goedert, and it absolutely looked phenomenal. And they got a touchdown on the drive right before the half. I got to give credit to the defense, Jim Schwartz and the defense. They made the Seattle Seahawks scratch and claw for every point they got. The final score was 23-17. And they made the Seattle Seahawks scratch and claw for every point that they got. We did a fairly good job against Russell Wilson and those guys. But I mean, we forced, 4 or 5 straight 3-and-outs for the Seattle Seahawks offense, and not one of those drives turned into points for us on offense. It's absolutely mind-boggling, and it speaks volumes, and it's absolutely echoing everything that we've been talking about over the past 8 to 10 weeks of this season. This offense has no identity. They have nothing to fall back on. There's nothing that they're doing right. I have no idea what's going on with Miles Sanders. It seems like he dropped 3 or 4 balls in 2 consecutive drives that were straight to him. Maybe one of them was out of reach, but at least 3 out of those 4 were catchable for him, and he just absolutely whiffed on them. That's been an issue that's been going on all season long for Miles Sanders, and once again it goes back to coaching. What are these coaches doing? Why aren't they getting this resolved? Why aren't they coaching him up? What is Deuce Staley saying to these running backs? What is Deuce Staley saying to Miles Sanders? I don't have the stat sheet right in front of me, but I can tell you he's probably got 5+ drops on the season in the passing game. It does look like they tried to use him a little bit more in the passing game this week, which is something that we've been trying to scream for as fans, and it just did not work out. So yeah, they brought Boston Scott in to try and remedy that, and Boston Scott didn't really get his numbers increased until garbage time towards the end of the game. So once again, receivers are not getting any separation. I don't even know where to go with that. That's again, it leads to a coaching issue. We've been through 3 wide receivers coaches over the last 4 years. 3 wide receivers coaches over the last 4 years. At some point, it can't be the wide receivers coaches. You got to look at Doug. Doug's got to take accountability. Doug needs to take accountability for what's going on. And yeah, he'll give you the same old rigmarole about, oh, I've got to coach better. We got to do better as coaches. We got to do better as players. But you're not. You're not fixing your issues. You're not correcting your mistakes. Right? So, we're going into week 13 now, we're going into week 12 now, and we're just not we're still talking about the same old mistakes that happened in week 1. The Carson to Dallas Goedert, that interception that he threw. Dallas Goedert and Carson Wentz were on the same page. What are you talking about? Dallas Goedert and Carson Wentz are on the same page. What are you talking about? Those guys have been playing with each other for a long time now. It's a mystery that Carson somehow has not outstanding great rapport, but better rapport with these guys that we're signing in off the streets, with guys like Richard Rodgers, and I'm not throwing him in with that category of off the streets because I will get into that in a second. But you can't have, but you're still wondering if you're on the same page with a player that you've been playing with for 2 years now? Come on. Absolutely, come on. I mean, we talked about it. We talked about it all week towards the end of the week going into this game. Jalen Hurts getting increased snaps. There was tons of reports. Jalen Hurts getting increased snaps in practice and with the ones. And so the idea was that Jalen Hurts was going to get a significant amount of snaps. Jalen Hurts had 2 snaps in this game. And trust me, and I say that, and I am not upset because it wasn't working. It wasn't working at all. And that's probably why they got away from it. And what does Doug say in the press conference? Is like, oh, well, we weren't clicking, so we didn't give him more snaps. Well, what are you talking about? Wasn't the idea prior to this game that you would go ahead and give Jalen Hurts more snaps if just to give the offense a spark if you weren't clicking? What is it, Doug? Doug is so lost. He's so broken. He's lost this team completely. And it's turned out to be Carson Wentz has lost as well. And honestly, I think Carson's obliviousness is a product of Doug's and the entire organization. I went ahead and I mean obviously, as I always do, watched the game entirely all the way through, and Jeffrey Lurie's frustration with the team has been completely highlighted over the last week and a half. And so yeah, the camera panned over and got shots of Jeffrey Lurie's reaction, and he absolutely looked disgusted. He looked embarrassed. And they panned to Howie Roseman too. I think my favorite thing throughout that entire broadcast of that Monday Night Football game against the Seattle Seahawks was the fact that Louis Riddick was a third party to the broadcasters during that game. Louis Riddick, former GM, former personnel guy, ties to Philadelphia, spent the entire game bashing Howie Roseman. And well deserved. Howie Roseman deserves it. Jeffrey Lurie got first hand at watching DK Metcalf tear apart that defense. DK Metcalf nearly had 200 yards receiving. This is a guy that Eagles fans screamed for a year ago for the Eagles to draft. Eagles fans were dead set on believing that that is who we were going to take. We thought we were going to take DK Metcalf with our first round pick. Who did we take? You want to know who we took? Andre Dillard. Andre Dillard is injured. Andre Dillard is going to come back from injury and is not going to have a starting spot. When we could have had DK Metcalf. And who did we take? Just a couple picks later. DK Metcalf lasted until the second round. Now, granted, a lot of people passed on DK Metcalf. But we were the team that needed the wide receiver help. We were the team that were predicted to go out and grab DK Metcalf, and we did not do it. We did not do it. No, who did we take before DK Metcalf got taken? J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Dude can't even get on the active roster for game day. Hasn't done anything. Most credit he's got to his name right now is recovering a Miles Sanders fumble after a 75-yard rumble for a touchdown. This team's broken. This team's absolutely broken. We got wide receivers that can't get open. We got wide receivers and young guys that are lining up in the wrong places, that are ending their routes, that are running the wrong way, running routes in the wrong direction. Couldn't even get a screen set up correctly in the Seahawks game, and it was third and 7. It was 3rd and 7. Couldn't get the screen set up correctly, and we were in Seattle territory. And safety Jamal Adams for the Seattle Seahawks completely blows it up and chases down Carson Wentz within a matter of 2 seconds. Blows up the play. Yeah, we get a field goal out of it. Speaking of field goals, what happened to Jake Elliott? What happened to Jake Elliott? That drive that Carson put together at the end of the first half was absolutely astounding. And it was so inspiring. It was so inspiring because, like I said, Carson looked like the Carson that we know he can be. And Jake Elliott misses the extra point, as if there's not any other thing that could possibly go wrong. He misses the extra point. And he's another guy. He's another guy who was spot on for us. Spot on for us. There's something going on. There's something going on with this team. Nobody's playing well. All of the things that some of these players used to do well, they can't do them anymore. Catching the ball was not an issue for Miles Sanders prior to the season. Carson Wentz's pocket awareness was not an issue before this season. Carson Wentz's ball security was not an issue prior to this season. Wide receiver separation? Yeah, that was an issue. That was an issue. And let's go ahead and get into it while we're talking about it. I mean, I had high hopes for Jalen Reagor when we picked him. But you had Justin Jefferson on the board. You had Justin Jefferson on the board. And what is Justin Jefferson doing? He's blowing it up in Minnesota. Absolutely blowing it up in Minnesota. That falls on Howie Roseman. That falls on Howie Roseman. And this is why I absolutely love the fact that Louis Riddick was commenting, was one of the commentators on that game on Monday night. He absolutely trashed Howie Roseman throughout the entire game, and Howie Roseman deserves it. The entire organization deserves to be nationally scrutinized. And Jeffrey Lurie is going to hear it. And he's going to be even more embarrassed. Doug Peterson needs to go. Howie Roseman needs to go. The fact that Louis Riddick was there and trashing Howie Roseman throughout the entire game just made me start to think, let's bring Louis Riddick back to Philadelphia as a GM. As a personnel guy. Let's do it. He hasn't been wrong. He hasn't been wrong. And you know what? Here's the thing. Neither have the Eagles fans. It seems like every year, going into draft day, the Eagles fans always have a better pulse on who to draft than Howie Roseman. That's a problem. That's a problem. We're fans. We're fans of the game. We're fans of the players. We watch from a distance. We don't spend hours and money traveling to these places to scout these guys. But yet, how were we right? How are we always right? We were right about DK Metcalf. We were right about Earl Thomas back in 2012. Now, granted, we chose Brandon Graham, and Brandon Graham panned out to be a great player for us. I'm not going to get into that. The Jalen Hurts pick was an absolute horrible pick. They threw Jalen Hurts in there twice in the first half of the game, and they didn't go back to him in the second half. Do you want to know why? Because he was throwing off consistency, camaraderie, and chemistry. It's exactly what I talked about going into Monday night's game. The offense was an absolute shit show. The defense forced at least 4. It may have been 5, but it was at least 4 3-and-outs. Consecutively. We had Russell Wilson and that offense under control. Not a single point came from that. And fans want to blame, and some fans want to blame that all on Carson. No, that's not Carson. That is not Carson. At all. Maybe a little bit. But during that 4-drive span, Carson had 7 passes. He was 3 for 7. Carson had 7 passes. Yeah. Percentage-wise, that's a horrible completion percentage. But it's only 4 incompletions. Up to that point. Only 4. Jason Peters looked horrible at right guard. Matt Pryor, as I suspected, as I talked about at length, because I have no faith in Matt Pryor whatsoever, looked horrible at right tackle. Absolutely horrible. There were times, but overall, D, F, F plus, F minus, F, who gives a shit? It wasn't good enough. Shannon Sharp on Undisputed talked about this yesterday. One of the best offensive tackles to ever play the game. One of the best offensive linemen to ever play the game. Hall of Famer Jonathan Ogden retired because of a toe injury. And then he went on to list a few others. Jason Peters played that game with a dislocated toe. What in the world are they doing? What in the world are they doing? I don't care if you put your second string, your third string, or you just sign a guy off of the street. You put in a healthy guy. It's not like it's going to get any worse than what it was. They're pandering to their loyalty to these players, and it's got to stop. Howie Roseman needs to go. Howie Roseman needs to go. Doug Peterson needs to go. It's too late in the season to not know what your offense is about, to not know what your players are about. They have not been able to put these guys in the best position to win. And it's nice to hear, because I don't hear a lot. I don't hear as much Carson hatred as we were hearing earlier in the season. And I think that there's a reason for that. Is there still a lot? Yes, there's still a lot, and deservedly so. Deservedly so. But I think people are starting to realize that there's something bigger going on in Philadelphia. There's something bigger going on in Philadelphia. And changes need to happen now. Changes need to happen now. You're not going to, by waiting to the end of the season, you're not doing anything for your team. You're not doing anything. You're not endangering them. I don't think Carson trusts the game plan. It's absolutely crazy. That drive going into the second half of the game, Carson took over the offense. He said, enough, Doug. It's exactly what happened. That is exactly what happened. Carson took over the offense, started scrambling for first downs, started making adjustments, and was playing up tempo, was getting the ball out quick, and played like the Carson Wentz that we know and love. Guys aren't getting open. Guys aren't protecting the quarterback. The offensive line is absolutely horrible. He's been through 10 different offensive line formations. Give the guy a break. Give the guy a break. This is 3 years in a row that we've been dealing with significant amount of injuries. (2018, 2019, and the 2020 season. There are no solutions right now. There is nothing that they can do. There is nothing that they can do. Doug got away from the run game again. Now, granted, Seattle made an effort to shut down our run game, and they did. But that is why you activate one of your power running backs. Corey Clement got some nice carries in there, but he's not as powerful as Jordan Howard. The verdict is still out on Elijah Holyfield, but he seems like he's probably more powerful than Corey Clement. They still haven't gotten John Hightower more involved. I still believe that they think that they need to get him more involved. Some believe that Louis Riddick was campaigning for a job in that front office on Monday night, and gosh, I hope he was. I really think he could come in and do a good job. Because Louis Riddick has a pulse of what of the fan base. Louis Riddick knows what the Eagles fans want. And it's not necessarily, and when I say what the Eagles fans want, that's not clash and splash and whatever. We're smart. Eagles fans are smart. We know what's best for this team. We know that DK Metcalf should have been the selection. That pick is going to haunt Howie Roseman. That pick is probably going to cost him his job. While all of our receivers can't get separation, DK Metcalf was a man amongst boys the other night. And Jim Schwartz matched Darius Slay up against DK Metcalf the entire night, and kudos to Darius Slay. He did everything he possibly could, but DK Metcalf was going to do everything he possibly could to come down with those 50-50 balls, and he did. DK Metcalf spoke about him wanting to get revenge for the Eagles not selecting him, and he did. And I'm glad that he did. I have nothing against DK Metcalf. We deserved it. This front office deserved it. There's ways to correct this team, but I do not believe that it is with Doug Peterson at the helm. And I do not believe that there's a scenario where success continues or can be revitalized with Howie Roseman still in the organization. There's going to come a point in time where I start talking about head coaching candidates and GMs and guys we can bring in. Carson's not going anywhere. Jalen Hurts was a horrible pick. And the top dogs in that front office, excluding Howie Roseman, need to acknowledge that. I think a second-round pick wasted on a quarterback probably messed with Carson's head. And you can't say that he's weak-minded for that. You can't. Carson's not weak-minded. That is a result of an organization that can't not make up their mind. It's like having a girlfriend who says that I love you and then she cheats on you the next day. That's not weak-minded. That is the result of lack of trust, which will affect anyone. There will be plenty more to talk about. There will be plenty of options that we will have to look into and discuss and go over. But this team is broken from top to bottom. And it needs to get fixed. And I believe that it can be fixed with coaching changes and GM changes and changes in the front office. Well, with that said, this is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. I will continue to be with you throughout the week as we will have plenty to talk about. I am Dylan Brown. I am your host. You'll all have a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday evening. Stay safe and stay healthy. Most importantly, go Birds.